Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Power Within podcast. My name is Trevor Evers. I'm your host. And in this episode, we have a man that was on the podcast all the way back in episode 2, John Scanlon. John is a hypnotherapist based in Wexford. And many of you will know John from organising the first ever Irish Hypnotherapy Conference in Ireland, which happened in Wicklow back in May 2023. And the great news I have is that John has planned another great event, a hypnotherapy conference for 2024. And I'm delighted to have him on the Power Within podcast here today to tell us all about it. John, my friend, how are you? It's great to have you on again.
Very well, Trevor. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm great. And it seems like an age ago since I was talking to you on episode 2 at the podcast.
Yeah.
And
it was last June or July or sometime, was it?
It was, yeah, 20 episodes ago.
Right.
And I think it's evolved. The podcast has evolved and changed a lot since then. And we've got into a lot of different areas, and a lot of people have come and gone. And I'm glad to have you back on because, folks, I attended the conference back in 2023, and I went with an open mind thinking, oh, I'll go along and see what this is all about. And I have to tell you, I was knocked out. It was the best event I ever attended. It was such a great atmosphere. You got to meet so many great people, a lot of colleagues, doing some great work all over Ireland and further afield. And since the conference, as you know, John, there's been a great network and community that has developed because of your work. And so it's something that you must be very proud of.
Yeah, it's one of I mean, for me, it is about creating that network and that community, because ultimately, for me, hypnotherapy is one of the most effective, healing modalities, if you want. And I just want more people to know about it, more people to experience it, more people to benefit from it. But it needs a community that would actually, be allow that to happen, because you have to have people who are skilled and know what they're doing. And I mean, I'm really, really delighted like that community that is created, that we're both part of. I mean, we've had numerous events throughout the year, both in person and online. We've had, and it's not just about skills and learning. It's about collaborating. It's about coming together. It's about 1 + 1 = 3. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what it is for me. I've worked in community pretty much most of the last 20 years, and yeah, I mean, it is about strengthening communities and that allow for change to happen.
Yeah, and one of the things that happened for me with it was that it changed my attitude and outlook completely in terms of other hypnotherapists working in Ireland doing great work. Because before, I kind of had, if I seen other hypnotherapists pop up around in the Waterford area or the southeast, I'd be looking, who's that now? They're stealing all my clients, kind of thing,
Yeah.
And it helped me to change that mindset to, there's a place for everyone. There's enough clients for everyone, and we can all learn off each other.
Absolutely. And actually, that's a really good point, because for me, I've used the expression many times before. What this conference and community about is cooperation, not competition. It's about people coming together and expanding the amount of people who benefit from hypnotherapy. So there is no competition, but it's creating that awareness through networking, through people coming together, and through people understanding, because there's all kinds of different tools and techniques. And as we know, as hypnotherapists, rapport is very important. So if rapport is very important, somebody may not gel with me, and I may not be effective, even though I may use, the same set of tools as you, or I may use a different set of tools as you, and I may get change that other people weren't able to create for them. So it's about a community that embraces all of the hypnotherapy tools and techniques, because ultimately it's about the client and what the client needs to change.
Sure. And one of the other things that struck me was that, and I was surprised, was that it was relatively ego-free at the conference, because, you know, there wasn't somebody saying, listen, this is the way to do it. And if you're not doing it this way, you know, you're not at anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I was pretty pleased with that as well, I have to say. There's just genuine people who want to help people. And like if we all had one car and we drove one car all day for all our life would be a pretty boring place. So there's all kinds of tools and techniques. The mind is consistently being studied, or the brain at least, and developed. And there's new avenues and pathways that everybody, you know, not everybody will change using the same technique. You know, so like it is about the awareness of other techniques, and I think Ireland was probably fairly insular in that way. Whereas I had done a lot of work abroad in Canada and in the UK and stuff, so you're able to see more and see some of the different stuff that they were doing in those places, and then start to bring it back. And ultimately, that was the driver. Ultimately, that was the driver, was to create an awareness, which would then create a community, which would then help more people. I mean, it's fairly simple model of the world. Not always easy to deliver, but fairly simple.
And I think you've done a great job, because like some of the speakers that you had at the first conference really blew me away. And, you know, their areas of expertise, the niche areas of expertise that they have. For example, Karina McAvoy, you know, she does some fantastic work with children. That's just one example. But I found in the meantime that if I get an inquiry for something that is not my niche and not my area of expertise, now I have a lot of options of where to refer that person onto to get the proper help that they need. And that's been, no, I couldn't have done that this time last year.
Yeah, and that's one of the other byproducts of this, is that, like, with that network, it allows for sharing of information and allowing for people to be helped who otherwise may be suffering in some shape or form that they didn't necessarily need to. Yeah, and I mean, I'm always fascinated, you know, because you mentioned it there, but I'm always fascinated about the various tools and techniques. I really am, because there's so many different ways in which to help people. Everybody has a different pathway for help, I suppose. And, you know, there's so many techniques now that are developed, like emotional detox or Arrow or various others, that are content free and just allow people to change without having to relive the trauma in their mind. And they're always a best place to start, as far as I'm concerned. But everybody's different. So everybody will work from a different place. And that's fine, absolutely grand. It's whatever works for the client ultimately. But just looking at it from the client's perspective, why drag them through stuff if they don't need to? If they do need to, grand. But if they don't, you know, so
it's not a one size fits all hypnosis.
No.
Yeah.
You've heard the expression before, 8 billion people on the planet. No two of us are the same. So no two of us are going to be accessed the same way.
Otherwise, we'd be all married to the same woman, or
absolutely
the same car.
Absolutely. You know, life is we all have different life experiences that make us who we are. So we all have different pathways to allow ourselves to change. And it doesn't have to be healing. It can be changed to make the best of us, to access those resources we have inside through coaching or through visualization that allow you to create, you know, change in your life in a positive way.
Sure.
So anyway, that's what the conference, I mean, they're the drivers behind it all. There's so many drivers behind it all, but it really is ultimately about helping people, empowering therapists, creating community, collaborating, and then expanding the reach of hypnotherapy, because it's just very effective. You know.
Sure. And your passion really comes across.
Thank you.
And I have to thank you as well, because you know, yourself for last year's conference, you helped me out with the accommodation and stuff because it's kind of late to the table. And so thanks for that. But when I met you first initially in person, I really was impressed with your passion and
Yeah.
your, you know, for the work that you're doing. And I'm sure there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't see and don't know about. And it's not an easy thing to do, is it, to go and organize such an event?
No. But like we've spoken before about when you do what you love, then it doesn't you'll just get stuff done, and there's like a magnetic force that pulls you forward.
Yeah,
So that's kind of what the way it exists for me. Um, you know, I love this profession, and I love what I do. Um, so it's not, yeah, there are moments, of course there are moments, but we all have them.
yeah,
But you know what? The
sure,
other side of it is we're all blessed because we have a set of tools even for ourselves in a self-hypnosis way. Or we have colleagues who can give us a hand when we need to. And I'm not talking about literally making that phone call. I'm talking about, here, I'm a bit stressed at the moment. Will you just do a session on me too? You know,
yeah. Because
so yeah,
that's the thing people forget, that, you know, we're humans as well, and we experience the same type of emotions and all the rest of it. And if we're not in a good place ourselves, how are we supposed to help our clients? And
correct.
that definitely has gone a huge way towards bringing us all on, and, you know, having the resources there to be able to reach out to uh, a colleague to
Yeah,
help when we need the
yeah.
help. So,
I think that's hugely important. And And why not? Because there is a set of skills that's available there, that people actually want to support each other. So it's just there.
sure,
Make the most of that.
sure. So what was the thinking behind? I know it's moved to Dublin this year, and it's not in Wicklow. Is there any reason for that? It's gone big city this year.
Um, there was actually a number of different reasons for that, to be fair. I mean, it was an Arklow last year, so you know, if you were anywhere on the south or the west or the north, it was a fair trek down to Arklow. It was close enough to Dublin, an hour down the motorway, or 45 minutes. But from anywhere else, if you were coming from Cork or you were coming from Galway or coming from Donegal or Belfast, it's a lot longer journey. So it made more sense to be a more centralized location. I mean, it's just off the M50. It's also quite close to the airport, so it's only a shuttle bus from the airport, which allows other people to be able to fly in.
Right.
Because there's not a huge amount of hypnosis conferences in Europe, um, and there probably isn't any as fun as ours.
Yeah.
Um, so ultimately, the objective is to make this one of the go-to conferences in Europe, so that people will travel. I mean, I don't know if I've said it to you, but I went to Hypnothoughts in Vegas last year.
Sure. Sure.
And
It was a lifetime experience,
it
that.
was, it was amazing, genuinely. I mean, never left the hotel because it was 43, 44 degrees outside in the middle of the desert in the middle of summer, which was probably,
Wow.
thankfully the Americans love aircon. But,
Yeah.
you know, like the last leg was 4 hours, 4 hour flight. And it's like, this is a very short flight for Americans because they were flying from everywhere to go there. But you'd be anywhere in Europe in 4 hours. So it suddenly made
Yeah.
the thought process, okay, um, you know, why not reach for the stars and make this one of the biggest conferences in Europe?
Start thinking big.
Well, why not?
Yeah. Exactly.
Why not? Like Ireland is so popular as a tourist destination. Um,
Mm.
why not tap into that same resource?
Yeah.
Because, and I've always believed, and this is no disrespect to anybody, but I've always believed that Ireland was quite insular in the way we thought about hypnosis. So the more we're exposed to different, we don't have to accept their view. We don't have to take it. Um, but we we expand our minds when we do, when we start to even just hear the other views and hear the other options,
Yeah,
you know.
indeed.
And I think we've been quite insular in the way that we haven't really changed very much down through the years. And I could be wrong, and other people will disagree with me, and that's okay. Um, but I think I think by creating a conference that brings people from all over the world and brings different options and people even from all over the world. I mean, the world is getting smaller, obviously, where people can, online, you can connect with anybody and you can be
Mm.
studying with people from Australia, time zones allowed,
Yeah,
but you can be studying with people from Australia, but there's still nothing better than the in-person experience. Where because that just becomes magnified when people are connecting physically, in the one location. Friendships get made in a much deeper level, connections get made in a much deeper level, and knowledge gets shared easier. At least, that's just my view of the world. Again, others will
sure,
differ,
sure.
you
And
know.
your conference last year triggered off another couple of meetups with the network. I know there was a great one up in Larne,
Yeah, we had an amazing one in Larne. You were there.
indeed.
We were in Port we had
Yeah, Christmas
yeah,
party.
yeah, absolutely.
Fun, fun, fun.
Absolutely.
That's what I
Um,
think of when I think back to that Christmas
yeah,
party.
no, absolutely. And I'm told that the fun police will be in at the conference, so it will
Yeah,
be a fun time as well. But
brilliant.
yeah, so it's triggered up those, and there was another couple of smaller meetups as well in Dublin or whatever. And then obviously there was all the online stuff, the coaching calls, the meetups online, the trainings. Um, I mean, all that stuff. And it's all about just imparting information and support, and,
Sure,
I suppose building capacity and resources for everybody. That's
absolutely. And it's
ultimately what,
great that they're available as well on the recordings. So
absolutely.
if you miss the live ones, you can get them back in your own convenient
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So what we've actually started to do now is the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference has a YouTube channel where a lot of those are starting to just to be uploaded for future reference. So if anybody wants to go back, they're there. They're just all there. And go back over the old stuff, go back over, like Stephen McGill has done some amazing training, which is all up there for
Sure,
people to see. So it's a resource for all hypnotherapists.
definitely. And Stephen McGill, speaking of Stephen McGill, I know he's coming back, isn't he, to speak at the conference this year,
Yeah.
and he's a valuable resource because I know I've been on to him several times since the last conference for the simple reason that when it comes to the work I'm doing here in my office, I practice here in Waterford. I love the work I'm doing in the office, but when it comes to the sales and marketing stuff, like that's a bigger challenge, let's say,
Yeah.
to say the least. And Stephen has been really helpful, hasn't he,
Stephen's
to
been really
us?
helpful. He's been really helpful to the group, to everybody, and anytime anybody needs anything, Stephen's there to support. He's just actually redesigned and redone the conference website. And I know we put the link at the bottom of this when it's done, but
Sure.
it's a much brighter and more colorful one than I had managed to do in the past. So I'm really grateful to him. But
Yeah,
like that's the other side of the conference is that while it is the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference, um, and one of the things that I suppose, said on a continuous basis is that you can be the best therapist in the world, but if you ain't feeding yourself or you ain't bringing in the money, um, you know, you're no use to anybody. So like the business side of I'll say the business side of hypnosis, but it actually applies to all therapies. Um, that is very well covered at the conference. I mean, you've Sheila Granger, who's building, supporting therapists. You have Jason O'Callaghan, and Stephen McGill, and actually, and you also have another few speakers that are covering business and coaching aspects. So it's kind of it's not all just the therapies and techniques and tools. It's actually about expanding the business awareness.
Yeah, yeah. And
Because
that's badly needed. It really
everybody
is.
needs that. Yeah, everybody needs that.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we all, like all of us have probably had existing, professions before we got the hypnotherapy, if we're all being, if we
Yeah.
follow all our journeys. But um, we trained as hypnotherapists. We're not necessarily marketeers, or we're not IT people, or we're not, and it's difficult you've got to learn it for
It
yourself because
is.
you're employed. So when that
It
support
is.
is there from a group,
And it depends on the person, the kind of person, like the personality that you have.
yeah.
Like for me personally, like I'm kind of more of an introvert at heart, and so that's why like Stephen's resources are so important to me, because it's not something that comes naturally.
Mm.
It's something that like you kind of have to go and force yourself to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I was Trevor. I'm an introvert at heart as well, by the way, even though you mightn't think it, but I actually am.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely. And even though I'm doing this podcast, folks,
yeah,
as
there you
well,
go.
it mightn't seem it, but
It is a journey,
yeah,
and it's about expanding our own awareness and our own skills as we go along. But like there've been people on that road who have helped you and others to, you know, to create and to get yourself out there and to do what you've done,
sure,
and
sure,
it's for me.
sure. So would you like to tell us a little bit more about your preparations for the 2024 conference, which is ongoing, the
Yeah, we're
preparations
6 weeks as we're recording that, 6 weeks today. So it's the 20th and 21st of April. It actually starts on the 19th, um, with Hypno Games on the Friday night, which is a kind of a fun, just I've done it in Vegas and I've done it in London, and it's just a fun use of hypnosis in just a very friendly way, and it's really fun. And Kate Bevan Marks does that, and she does it really well. It brings a lot of fun to it. And then it starts on the Saturday morning. But actually 2 weeks before that, Anthony Jackman will be doing an online presentation.
right?
It the Not sure whether it's the Saturday or the Sunday, but it'll be well flagged in advance anyway. But it is the weekend 2 weeks before. And then everything starts really at kind of 8:30 on the Saturday morning. And it's going to be a jam-packed weekend because we have
Yes, so
2 rooms going all weekend.
that's right. We were saying, discussing that before we come on, that there's choices this time around, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's it's normal practice in other countries,
Mm.
where not everybody's going to be interested in one particular topic. Like you go to somewhere like Las Vegas, and you have 11 rooms, you can't actually even choose. You've just got to pick the ones you
11
want to go
rooms.
see. Talk about choice. In London, it was three. But what we've done here is two. And it's only for the morning. So in the afternoons, then everybody comes together. And that's kind of that sense of community, so that everybody still gets time together and meets. Um,
Sure.
but in the mornings, there's choice, and it's covering everything from, you know, NLP and working with children, to business, to, rapid therapy techniques, to working with families through the military and emergency services, their families who are suffering from trauma, to discussing sexual issues and how it can resolve, issues with Cas. So there's it through the helping people through the cancer journey and how hypnosis does that, reversing the negative spiral of depression. It's just, and
Yeah.
then wonderful things like, and I'm really looking forward to it because I love what Adam Cox will be doing on the Sunday morning, which is nested loops. And that's something anybody can use. It's just metaphor, but it's almost like that movie Inception, dream within a dream within a
Yeah.
dream,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the message is somewhere buried in the middle. And I love that. And Adam has a hugely successful podcast with like 7 million downloads. So
Whoa.
yeah. called A Hypnotist, and actually he records, and what his podcast is recorded sessions. You know, it's really, really powerful. But he's doing that, and that's something anybody can use actually. You know, you don't have to be a hypnotherapist to be able to tell a story if you're, you know,
Sure. And you don't
massage.
necessarily have to be a hypnotherapist to be interested in the conference and to attend the
No,
conference. Isn't that
no,
true?
absolutely. Um, like that's with the business aspect of it covered, you know, there'll be something for everybody anyway, because everybody who's operating as a therapist is in business, you know.
Yeah.
So there's marketing, there's practical advice on how to support clients, how to get clients, how to promote yourself, but you know, all of that, that's all there. How to construct a business blueprint for yourself, that's all there. And whether you're like hypnotists are hypnotherapists, so it's still therapists. So the same principles apply across the board. And then
Yeah.
anyone with
Yeah.
any kind of interest in hypnosis doesn't have to practice it, but any kind of interest will would they'll learn so much, because you genuinely do have presentations at that conference where these people will present all over the world, you know, and it's in Dublin, you know, so some of the best speakers in the world are in Dublin. You don't have
Sure.
to travel to see them, they're right here. And you'll learn. And the other thing you'll remember from last year, because it'll be the same, is, you know, they're in the corridors, they're very approachable. There's absolutely, you know, aloofness doesn't exist. So they'll sit
Mm.
and have a chat. It's
You won't
just
be on your own.
absolutely, they're part of the community. They're part of the community. You know,
Yeah.
and the speakers become part of the community, so they're just freely available to everybody. And then you have the fun police who will make sure you're not on your own anyway. So,
Yeah. And is there entertainment planned for
oh yeah,
Saturday
actually,
night?
right now, and yeah, there is. So we have on the Saturday evening there is a dinner on the Saturday night, and there is music, but in between the dinner and the music, and is a stage hypnosis show.
Great. Brilliant.
And that's done for two reasons, absolutely. There's a number of different reasons for it. It is that the firstly, it, you know, if you're learning and engaging all day, it's nice to relax. And why not use the same thing that we're learning about, just using it in a different direction to have fun? You know, and ultimately that's what stage is. It's the exact same hypnosis used in a different direction. And the second thing is that, you know, if you talk to, say, European or American hypnotherapists, they will often, and there's presentations in, and Sean Michael Anders will be doing it in Dublin. But he's done it in London, he's done it in Vegas, Melissa Tears done it, Kate Bevan Marks does it. A thing called So You're a Hypnotist, Show Me Something. The thing about stage
Mm.
is that a therapist who is also a stage hypnotist combines the two and then uses stage to show the power of hypnosis and then help people because their clinics start to get fuller. You know, so it's about breaking down some of those barriers.
Yeah,
That's
indeed.
one of the things I was talking about earlier about insular.
Mm.
You know, people say that stage has kind of damaged hypnosis. I actually think it's probably Hollywood movies have done that more than anything else, to be fair. I think stage shows the power of the mind. And when you talk to, you know, European or Americans, they'll use the two hand in glove. So it was just, it's about creating an awareness of that while having fun all at the same time.
Definitely. And that's something that my mindset has completely changed on in comparison to when I was first trained all the way back in 2010. I was trained by the NGH, and I'm sure you're familiar with
Mm.
the National Guild. And at that point, it was very much, you know, just keep those guys at arm's length, you know. Um, don't mention them in your pre-talk or anything like that, like, you know. But over time and over the years, I've actually discovered that, you know, if you're a confident stage hypnotist, you know, it takes a lot to do it.
Yeah.
And it, you know, if you're you need to be good at what you're doing. You need to be hypnosis through and through to be a stage hypnotist,
Yeah.
you know?
And that was the thing. I think I'd identified a number of different things that stage hypnotists have to do. I mean, they have to have
Mm,
rapport with their audience.
mm, mm.
Um, they have to be able to, read body signals and understand what person is going to be a good subject and what person isn't. Um, they have to know how to hypnotize.
Sure.
Um, they have to be creative because, they're providing entertainment, and they also have to be confident. And when every client that we meet is different, like what of those skills are not valuable? You know,
Mm.
that
All of them. Yeah.
yeah, and that's my view.
Mm.
So it just gets used in a fun and relaxed way. Everybody knows nobody needs to go up if they don't want to. You've seen it all. There's a number of tests that people do, and it's only the people who go through the 4 or 5 tests, which means they're ready to go up on stage anyway.
Sure. So you won't be barking like a dog and clucking like a chicken. That's not
Absolutely
necessarily,
not.
not if you don't want to, folks.
No, no, you might be singing, but
Great stuff. And another thing is like looking at the schedule for the conference, like the variety of speakers in terms of like, there's a lot of Irish hypnotherapists speaking, and there's a
there's
lot of from further afield, isn't there?
there the States, Europe, the UK, and Ireland.
Mm,
And I mean, there's 3 people who've
brilliant.
never spoken at conferences before, all Irish, all giving, you know, their knowledge to the crowd, to the people who'd be there.
Yeah.
Uh, Sarah Jane, Laura, and Fiacre, they've never spoken at conferences before. They're part of the community that we are, and they're sharing their knowledge. They all have years of experience. Laura's, bringing her years of experience with weight loss, and she's going to start, sharing her knowledge that she's learned. Um,
Brilliant. This is Laura McDonald, folks.
Laura McDonald, yeah.
I've had Laura on the podcast a while back. You check it out. It's still available. It's actually, I think, the third or fourth most watched podcast. So she knows her stuff.
Yeah, she does.
Um,
She
so if
does.
you're attending the conference, make sure to check her out. Great.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah, and I mean Sarah Jane O'Neill,
And
hypnosis for
Sarah Jane, yeah.
parents. Yeah. And then Fiacre, the power of our imaginations, Fiacre Morrison. Uh,
Favorite, yeah.
you know,
And Karina's coming back.
yeah, Karina
Yeah,
is NLP, working with children and teens and parents. So how she uses NLP in that in her therapeutic practice.
sure. Well,
Yeah,
it's funny with Karina, even, it's something that we can, if you have children, folks, you can take a lot of good stuff and good advice from Karina,
yes,
to implement in your
absolutely.
own life, not necessarily to use in your practice.
Absolutely. I mean, Karina, and she has her own TikTok with Frankie,
Yeah.
and I know they use
Oh, so
NLP.
Frankie's been on the podcast as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And he'll
So
be back. He'll be there, will he, Frankie?
Frankie will be there.
Oh, Frankie will be there. Great stuff.
Frankie will be there. I
Brilliant.
think Frankie's on his world travels because, Karina spoke in Dublin or in Arklow last year. She'll be in Dublin this year, and she'll be in Vegas during the summer.
Brilliant.
So
Brilliant.
yeah, and then so you also have Jason O'Callaghan, who is both a stage hypnotist and a clinical hypnotherapist, who has one of the busiest and most successful practices in the country. And you have people like Carl Smith, people like Freddie Jacquin, Kaz Riley, Kate Bevan Marks, Rob de Groof. Yeah, like you really have, and you learn everything from Gary Coles, how to support someone through the cancer journey, and he works in hospitals in the UK.
Amazing stuff.
So there's so much there for everybody. It really is. And
Your head will be full of knowledge.
yeah, your head will be full
Leave
of
it.
knowledge. Absolutely. And I
Mm.
know it's not finalized yet, but I expect that Sheila Granger and I are doing something on the follow on the Monday, which is how to support adopted people using hypnosis. Um, so that's kind
There's
of
so
been,
much, there's so much to it, and like you learn so much. You
yeah,
really do. And even folks, if you're a hypnotherapist out there watching this and you have an established practice, like even, you're going to learn more. And like for me, I like you can pick and choose as well, and take a bit from here, a bit from here, and integrate it into your practice, in your own practice, and use what resonates with you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and I mean that's what most people do. And I
Mm.
know I do it all the time in my own practice where I take three or four
Yeah,
different
yeah,
techniques, whatever ones work for the client. Um, I still use the stuff that I was trained in regression and various others, but I use them as last resorts. Like I was saying at the very top of it,
mm,
because like there's so many new ways that people can look at it. Like there's really nothing new in hypnosis, but there's different ways in which people start to pull it together.
yeah,
And I think what I love, and I hope I'm explaining this well, is that a lot of people will teach a system and work to a system. But when you work to a system, you're almost getting the clients to work to your system.
yeah,
Whereas if you understand the principles behind everything, it almost becomes each and every piece becomes almost like a Lego piece that you can stack one on top of the other, depending on what is right for the client, you know? And
sure.
that gets back to rapport, being able to understand what the client is experiencing, behind that facial expression,
Yeah,
even when the words aren't being said. Again, all those things that stage benefits people as, and having the confidence um, to not being afraid to help somebody. You know, not everybody's going to be helped all of the time, um, but not being afraid to not wanting to help and making that effort to help somebody. And then going, that technique didn't work. Now I have another one in my tool bag.
exactly. Sure.
So,
Something I'd like to ask you, and get into, which I know there's a lot of challenges involved in organizing such a big event. I know you love it and you have a lot of passion for it. Is there any moment you think, oh, is it worth it? I know there has to be just a little bit of stress and anxiety that comes along with all of this stuff.
it's like I said, we are really lucky in the profession that we have, that we know both self-hypnosis and have people who can help us through times where there may be spikes in emotion. Because as you said, we are human. Yes, there are, and of course there are.
Yeah,
There's a whole lot of logistics goes on behind the scenes. There's a whole lot of things that need to happen first. Um,
mm,
and we don't always see that. And I never saw it either, actually, until I ended up starting to do it. Um, but each one is a learning. And I suppose it's a bit like after Arklow, I learned a lot. Um, Implemented a lot of that when we did the training with Freddie Jackman in January, and learned. So cut out the ones that, the things that I learned the previous time,
yeah,
implemented was learn more that time. So I've learned more this time now as well. Um, so ultimately, yes, there are stressful moments. There's no shadow of a doubt. There's no point in me saying there's not. Um,
yeah.
but I still loved what I do. So, and I love, like I said, I think I used the image of it's almost like a magnet. It's just kind of pulling me forward. So
Mm. It's like a jigsaw. Well, it's all going to come together beautifully, I'm sure.
absolutely, there'll be absolutely no issue with that. It's going to be absolutely, it will be the largest hypnotherapy event, to my knowledge, that's ever happened in this country,
Brilliant.
to my
Brilliant.
knowledge. Um, and with speakers coming from so far afield to share their learnings with everybody, and actually also just to expand that sense of community, because ultimately it is about the community, that I can use here. Like I can reach out to people and I can go, come here, like I was just saying. Um, like, can we collaborate on this, or I need help with that, or whatever, like Stephen McGill or whoever. Um,
Yeah,
like, so it's about empowering people at every level so that hypnotherapy becomes a more accepted and go-to profession. I mean,
sure.
we've all had the client who's come in, and I have them all the time. I've tried everything else. Why didn't I go here first? I would have saved myself a lot of pain, but that's down to us to get the information out. Um,
That's one of the things I was going to say to you, that, sometimes that we don't realize that there's still a lot of work to do in getting the word out about the truth about hypnotherapy
Absolutely.
and the good work that we do.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes we can be kind of, we're in this bubble, with the community as well. And it's only over periods like Christmas, you realize that people's perception of the work that we do, you know, there's still a lot of work there, let's say.
No, absolutely. And there's a number of different reasons for that. At least, in the way that I think about it. Um, One of them is that as a, I suppose as a profession, it's been disparate here. It's never been, and I'm not talking about pulling it together well, I am. I'm talking about coordinating it so that it can actually work together in unison, ultimately to serve the client.
Sure.
Um, Research, there is research out there. It wouldn't be as intensive as other stuff.
Yeah.
Hypnotherapy probably hasn't been as well promoted as the likes of counseling or CBT. And some of that would be because the evidence exists, even though there is evidence, and we can find the surveys, but there'd be more stuff done on counseling, there'd be more stuff done on CBT. But hypnotherapy in all of the tests that have been done has been far more effective than any of those, and that's no disrespect to anyone who does what they do.
Mm.
And it gets back to that whole point that I was talking about, even about regression within hypnotherapy, of you don't have to go back and relive a trauma when there's another way around doing it. All those new tools and techniques that come out that are really, really effective. But you can I had the conversation with Gary Coles, who has done, cancer research and has done a PhD on it.
Mm.
And if you had a scientific group where you have a test group that so you have a hypnosis group and a test group, and you have to measure the results over a period of time. Do you think the test group will know they haven't been hypnotized? Like, what process did they go through?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So,
I know
like,
what you mean.
hypnosis
Yeah,
becomes harder to measure in that empirical science way.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's up to all hypnotherapists to kind of come together and figure out a way around doing that. To be honest, and I think I spoke about this to you last time, but I'm open to correction. To be honest, for me, it's word of mouth. Um, because you will get the person who has quit the cigarettes or lost that weight or whatever, and they'll happily share their story, right? And hypnosis is well regarded for both of those too. What's less well regarded for is, say, working with anxiety or depression. Um, and if you think about it logically, why would I share with the world that, I was depressed?
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
you get less of the Google 5-star reviews when that happens. And I work with that all the time. I work with things like FND and various, trauma related stuff where that cause physical reactions. Um, and
Absolutely.
but how to evidence that? Actually, well, that's a journey that we all have to go on in terms of how we evidence that.
Yeah.
Um, and how that word gets out and that people know more about the power and the ability to change and to deal with the cause with or without having to go down the route of aggression.
Mm.
Actually, I mean, you know, sometimes I think, when you think about so much of the cause, when you think about, say, how an elephant is trained, where they're strapped to a stick in the ground or a pole, when they're a little cub and the chain is wrapped
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
And even as a fully grown elephant, they won't move from that. So much of the,
Mm.
but you know that they could literally lift the leg and the stick and the king would all come.
Yeah.
They would all just disappear off the ground. But the elephant doesn't believe that. So it's like a tiny little belief that has, filled up this large elephant's mind. So many of our problems are a bit like that too. They're tiny beliefs that we just need to realize our own strength. And we don't have to relive them, because often we think we're back at that age we were when that happened. We're not the same person. We know so much more than we do today.
Well, definitely the conference is going a long way to inform the general public about the benefits of the work that we do and the help that is there for people. And, ideally, we're not there yet. I know there's a long way to go. Wouldn't we love to get to a point where it's not the last resort?
Absolutely. Why do people need to unnecessarily go through pain? Because accepted standards dictate they go something else, take medication or whatever other route they need to go.
Yeah.
And that's on everybody. I mean, that's on all hypnotherapists as well, in terms of promoting, and I mean in a realistic way. I don't mean in an unrealistic way. But that's a conversation that does need to take place at some point in time. But ultimately, in between then and now, really is about, one client being able to say, you know what, Trevor made a massive difference in my life. And if you've that problem, go see Trevor.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The issue becomes that the likes of things like anxiety and depression, people don't really want to talk about it too much. So they may not say go to Trevor, go to John, or go to whoever, because they haven't said that's a problem in the first place. It's behind.
Indeed. John, I can't wait for the conference. I know it's flying, time is flying by, the weeks are passing. And as you said, it's only 6 weeks to go. And I'm really looking forward to it. And folks, if you haven't got your ticket, get your ticket. John, can you let us know where you can get the tickets for the conference and where to go? And is there any left? It's not sold out at this point.
It's getting there, so move quickly. It's the 20th and 21st of April. It's in the Clayton Hotel, Dublin Airport. The website, I think you'll put at the bottom of this, so it's HCTP.
I will indeed, yes.
Irish Hypnotherapy Conference.
Sure.
And whether people, there is the option of, if somebody was coming and somebody was with them, but wasn't interested in hypnotherapy, they can just come to the dinner on Saturday night. It's just a separate charge for that as well.
Right.
So it would be a case of, let's say your wife wanted to come with you, and so I'm not going to that thing because it's hypnosis all day. She can go off and do what she wants and then come to the dinner on Saturday night.
We'll say that to Andre later. So
that price is there as well. And people, I forgot to promote it because people kept asking me. I did it last year. I've already done it 4 or 5 times already this year, but it's only when people have asked me rather than saying, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, lads, that option's there."
Great stuff. So, John, listen, thanks a million for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Trevor. It's great to talk.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And we shall be in touch, and we shall see you in person in 6 weeks.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Can't wait. Now, officially, at the moment, I'll be arriving on the Saturday morning, but you've almost convinced me to get there on the Friday evening. There seems like a bit of fun is going to be going on. It
will be fun. It does that really well. It does that really well.
Great stuff. So listen, John, thanks very much. Look after yourself.
Well, of course.
And look, we'll be in touch.
Brilliant. Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks a million, John. Okay, folks, it's that time again to say goodbye. My name is Trevor Evers. I'm your host. This is the Power Within podcast. And until the next episode, be good to yourselves, take care, and we'll see you soon. Take care, folks.